sat at the edge of the mountain for the 40 days, it says. He didn't leave there. Now you could imagine every intelligent person who watched that said he's nuts. What normal, intelligent person would do such a thing? Normal, intelligent person, the rabbi leaves, and you go back to business as usual. What do you mean, the rabbi is so important, you can't live without. That's how all of them were involved in Negel HaZohov, and he wasn't. Because his connection was so strong. He was so dovuk that saved him from participating at all. You have the example of the Meraglim, where the Meraglim went to 10, 12 leaders of Klal Yisrael who were sent, representative of the whole Klal Yisrael, to check out Eretz Yisrael. 10 of them failed, and brought us the most tragic day in the whole calendar year. Tisha B'Av is brought to you by the Meraglim, right? 2 people passed that test. Yehoshua, through his kesher to Moshe Rabbeinu, because he was so closely attached. Lo yomish v'hu nar lo yomish mitoch oel. The Torah describes his kesher, that he wouldn't leave Moshe Rabbeinu's side. He was there every time Moshe Rabbeinu gave a shiur. He was there before to set up the chairs and to clean up and to this. That's why he made it. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu, a person would say, why, if Moshe Rabbeinu was so great, why didn't he daven for all 12 of them? It seems to be such an obvious question. And the answer is, because each and every single person, according to how much they put into it, that's how much they take out. No 2 Jews are equal, and no 2 people's understanding of Hashem is equal. The pasuk describes understanding of Hashem, Kimolo ha'oretz deas Hashem, kamayim layam nechasim. That there's going to come a time when the world is going to be filled with understanding of Hashem, like the water that covers the ocean floor. Just like the water that covers the ocean floor, you look out, it looks like it's all flat, right? If you didn't know better, you'd think it was all the same height. You go inside and you see that near the shore, it's a couple inches deep. You go out a couple of miles, it goes down 7 miles down the ocean. So on the surface, all look relatively equal, right? You go down, check out the depth, you see it's a different world. So Yehoshua was saved through his kesher to Moshe Rabbeinu. Who else was saved? Kolev. What did Kolev do? Kolev obviously was not as close to Moshe Rabbeinu as Yehoshua. People don't stop to think, what do you mean? People they don't stop to think that no 2 people are alike. And the Torah describes Yehoshua as being the closest one to Moshe Rabbeinu, that level of dedication. What did Kolev do? He did the next best thing. He ran to Kivrei Tzadikim. He ran to the kever of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, even though there was an element of sakana involved. And the Gemara tells us that sakana, a person has to be very careful. The Zohar Kodesh says he understood that the sakana of not going was worse. That the danger that he was in at that time of falling in with the Meraglim, he understood that it was worth risking his life to go to Hebron, to be mispalel at the kever of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Question. Famous question of today. We have the Koisel Maravi. You mean to say it makes such a difference if I stand over here in daven, or if I stand over there? There's such a big difference. The answer is obviously yes. If you learn the Chumash, it's very obvious, very clear, that it does make a difference. It made enough of a difference for Kolev to risk his life, to go to Kivrei Tzadikim, to be mispal there, to ask Hashem to help him in the Zechus of these Tzadikim, to ask Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov to be mispal for him to be saved. These are some of the examples that we see in the Torah of this issue of hiskashrus, person believing in Tzadikim, believing in their greatness and connecting to them.
Maybe you could speak a few minutes about Uman, what's going on with Uman, what logistics, like we all hear about Uman, but there's tons of logistics involved. And could you give us an insight of what you do? And then we'll wrap it up.
Sure. Hashem gave my rabbis the privilege. Rabbi Rosenfeld, Zichron Avracha, my Rebbe, who passed away 20 some odd years ago, at that time when there was still communist Russia, at that time put in incredible effort, hours and hours, to try to get the first group of people to be permitted to go from outside Russia, behind the Iron Curtain at that time, in 1965. Was the first time that a group of, I think, about 12 Jews went from the United States to Russia at the time, got permission visas, to go as foreigners, to go into what today is called Ukraine, and to go to visit the kever of Rabbi Nachman. Now here again, people say, well, the obvious question, who needs the kever of Rabbi Nachman? You have a Morah Samach, we have the Morah Samach Pela, we have the Koisel. This question was asked to Reb Shapsi Yudalevich, who's not a Breslov Chassid, who lives in Yerushalayim, who came to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, and somebody asked him this question. He said, what should I do? He said, and they didn't. He said, come to me, that everybody, an announcement, everyone who can should come to me for Rosh Hashanah. He said, anyone who comes, I'll do everything in my power to help that person. The other, Rabbi Akiva didn't say it. Show me where he said it. He didn't say it. This one didn't say it. That's why I go there. That was his answer at the time. From that time on, there were trips, there were small trips eventually, until Perestroika, when things opened up about 18 years ago, when communism fell, and Russia, Ukraine opened diplomatic relations with Israel, and that was when people started going more regularly. And what started first, the first Rosh Hashanah at the time, there were 250 people that went. The following year, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, until this past year, they estimated about 20,000 people that went. And when it first started growing, it became obvious that there's a need. There are certain basic things that are needed there. You need a shul for people to daven in. You need a mikveh. You need showering facilities for people. So my Rebbe Zechron Avracha, Reb Michal Dorfman Zechron Avracha, at the time took upon himself the responsibility of building the shul. And it was an evolution of years, that it took in middle of Ukraine. He once made a comment that it's easier to put up one brick. It's easier to put up a building in Yerushalayim than it is to put up one brick in Ukraine, in Uman. That was the kind of obstacle course. People ask me this question a lot of times, does the government help you? And the answer is, if only they wouldn't hurt us, not help. The obstacles from every single angle in the world, really, making things extremely difficult. But b'chazdei Hashem, it was a process, and we're zeichet today to have half of a shul, about half the building is up, which has 2 floors in it, one floor in which about 1,300 seats, a Sephardic minyan, and the floor above that has 2,600 seats, which is a combination of Ashkenaz Sfarad. There's supposed to be an additional 2 galleries that are yet to be built that'll put it up to about 5,500 seats in Mitzvah. But Baruch Hashem, there are people coming every year. There are people that come repeatedly. There are new people that come. And I spoke to somebody, I think it was 2 years ago, not a Breslover, from Flatbush, a person who went for Rosh Hashanah. And I asked him, how did you like it? And he said that it was very special. He said, I'll tell you, I thought about it. I've given it thought. And I'll tell you how I would describe it. Until I went there, whenever I heard them talking about Moshiach coming, I couldn't fathom it in any way, what the picture, what things would look like at that time, how Klal Yisrael could look at that time. After being in that place for Rosh Hashanah, now I could picture it. I could picture what it's like to have every single different kind of Jew together, coming together for Ruchnius, for a spiritual, not for, not in a 5-star hotel, not in a 4.5-star, coming purely to make a certain connection to Hashem, on such a special day, such a special time, Rosh Hashanah. And Hashem has given us, up until about 3 years ago, there were 2 groups of people responsible for what went on there. There was one group that handled the Rosh Hashanah arrangements, and also the kever itself, responsibility for the kever and the surrounding area. There was another group that addressed the shul, these shul facilities, mikveh, all of that. From about 3, this is going to be the 4th year,